All right, everyone. So the next thing we're going to talk about is something called an icon font. And we're also going to talk about what is referred to as a framework. Okay. So I'm in exercise 5. And this is not specifically to do with frameworks, but it's a concept that frameworks use a lot. And it's the idea that we can actually use multiple classes to affect something. Okay, so here I have a bunch of classes. Okay, I have a red text, blue text, green text, purple text. I have a couple classes about typography. There's a font courier, font Arial, font Helvetica, font underline. Okay, and here I just have a bunch of HTML, nothing overly complicated. And I'm just going to preview it in a browser like this. Okay. Now let's say for the sake of argument, I want the first 3 items here to be red. So I could come in here and I could say, well, class equals red text. And I'm just going to copy this and apply it to the other 2. Okay. So I'm going to save and let's refresh. And these all turn red, as we probably would expect they would. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, I wanted this top one to be courier. So I come in here and go, well, okay, this is being applied. So I just come in here and I say font family courier, right? And then I'm going to save and preview, and that's courier. But the problem is because this class is applied not just to the H1, but to all 3, it's going to apply that to all 3. Okay. But maybe I don't want this one to be courier. Maybe I want that one to be Helvetica. Well, now we're running into this problem, right? And so what I could do is I could say, well, okay, that's red text. And then I have red text too. And, it's going to also be red, but, instead of using courier, I'll set it to Helvetica and blah, blah, blah. But the problem is like, this is kind of defeating the point of a class. The point of a class is to apply it many times, not to like make these very precise classes that can really only be used once or twice. Okay. So there's actually a better way to do this, which is you can actually combine classes together. So in other words, I have red text being applied, and that's giving the text, it's applying a red text. But I also have these other classes, one called font courier and one called font Helvetica. So what I'm going to do here is go to my CSS, or go to my page here, and inside of the class, I'm going to hit a space and I'm going to type in font courier. Okay. Now note that it doesn't matter which class comes first, as long as there's a separation in space. Okay. It's not alphabetical. It doesn't matter. The other thing is also do not do this. Don't do what I'm typing now, which is don't do this. Okay. The reason why is that HTML tags can only have one class attribute. Okay. They can have multiple attributes, but only one class attribute. Okay. So if you do this, what this is essentially going to do is it's going to override the first one with whatever the second one is. Okay, so really I'm only going to get half of what I want. Okay, so we don't want to do this. Instead, what we're going to do is, that old meme, don't do this, do this. Well, this is do this. Okay, now if I do this, it's going to apply both the red text and the courier class to this H1. Now I'm going to come into here and I'm going to do font Helvetica. So once again, it's going to apply, both of them are going to get the red text class, but each one is getting a separate, second class. Okay. So if I come into here and I'm going to refresh, you can see that they're both red, but now they have different typefaces. And in fact, if I look at this, I do a little inspect here, this is giving it the color, and then this is giving it the courier. This one is Helvetica. So, it's only affecting that one thing. So what's nice about this is you can combine classes to get really, to get more control over what your thing looks like. So I'm actually going to come into here and I'm going to do font courier, and then I'm going to use this other one called underline, and that just applies an underline text decoration. So if I come into here, boom, okay. I have multiple classes. And in fact, if you actually went and looked at most websites, you will notice that most websites use multiple classes on something. So if I come into here and let's look at something here. So this is the Diablo Valley website here. Of course, the one time okay. So here, this is two classes, one called large 6 and then columns. So those are two separate classes. Here, this has two classes on it, one called show on focus and the other one called skip content. So you will see from time to time that websites will apply multiple classes. Yeah, that website actually had less than I thought it would. But if you go to like Amazon, there's like so many classes being applied. So it's like, let's go down here to the main page. Where are we? So here you can look and it's like cell widget is one class, nav sprite v1. This one has another set of two. Sometimes I've seen like, depending on the website, I've seen like 10 being applied, so you can apply as many as you want. There's really no limit. This has two, H menu hidden link, that's one class, nav side menu back to top is another class. Okay. All right, so that's multiple classes. Let's talk about what a framework is. All right. So in assignment 1, and pretty much, all of the, all right. So, in the past, you guys wrote all of your own CSS, right? So, you would create a CSS document, call it style or whatever you called it, and write whatever your CSS was. So on and so on, right? What we're going to be doing is working with a framework, and essentially what a framework is, at least in a computer development or web development sense, and a lot of programming development sense, is it's basically code that has already been written that you can use in a project. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is I wrote this CSS document, right? Here's the CSS document. This file literally exists on my computer. I can go and there's the file, okay? But what if the CSS file wasn't on my computer? What if it was stored online, the CSS file? Okay. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is like, what if, I don't know if I have an example of it here, but what if the CSS file, so let me draw it out real quick. It's like, normally I have an HTML file and then I have a CSS file, right? And they're on my computer. But what if that CSS file was being stored on another computer, like a server? So here's the CSS file. And my file was, attached to this CSS file that's online. So that's essentially what a framework is. Someone else writes the code and then they put it in an available space that you can access. Okay. So to give you an idea, we're going to do a very scaled down version of this. Okay. I have a CSS document that I put online. Okay, I wrote it. It's being hosted on a server of mine. You can get the link that's like right there, and you can find it. Okay. So this is being stored online. Okay. And I actually have what's called documentation. Documentation is always how do you use the framework? Okay. So essentially it's a bunch of classes. This is what they do. They set colors, they set type, they set, sizes and shadows and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the framework to this computer. In other words, what I'm going to do is this is my HTML file. That CSS file I wrote, which is called davidhurwich.css, is being stored online. Okay. This is the location of it being stored online. So what I'm going to do is let's use that link. We're going to use the same old link tag we normally do. The difference is rather than putting in style.css here, I'm going to put a URL that finds that file online. Okay. Now that I've done that, I can now use any of the CSS that was in the style sheet. Now I could literally do it like this and look at it, but it helps to have a documentation document like this. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, okay, well, it looks like there's a class called button green. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say button green. And there's another class called button yellow. So let's use that one. And maybe I'm going to apply courier. So let's do text. Courier is another class I can use. And text. Oops, it just got to be inside of it. Text times. Okay. I'm going to save and I'm going to go back and let's preview that document. Okay. So you can see it's starting to work. There's the green, there's the yellow, this is the yellow, this is the courier, this is the Verdana, or sorry, not Verdana, Times New Roman. I did some other ones like shadow and things like that. I could use impact or whatever. So the point about this is it's some code that I can use and I don't have to write it myself. So it's faster because I didn't have to write it. I also didn't have to store, it's one less file to deal with because this is using a file that's online and it's, it's not, I don't have to keep a copy in my project folder, okay? So, okay, great, right? Who cares? How do we use this? Well, what we're gonna do is this, okay? In web design, there's usually a lot of icons. Okay. Icons, let's just look at an example here. Here's New York Times. It's a lot of icons here. There's like this little gear. There are, this little there's an icon, little video icon, cloud icon, hamburger menu icon, search, little magnifying glass icon, right? There's all these different icons that are in my product or in the website. There's a little icon there for comments, this little one down there. Here's another example. So it's like, this is, Google Play. It's like, these are all little icons, right? The stars are little icons, these are icons, right? Now, we could make these icons in a program like Photopea or Photoshop or Figma or whatever, and we could export them as JPEGs or PNGs or WebP files or SVGs, right? But there's a better way to do this, okay? And it involves something called an icon font, okay? So what is an icon font? Well, an icon font is a font that instead of using traditional letters like A through Z or 0 through 9, it's basically icons. Okay, so for instance, like let's look at Webdings. Okay, instead of letters, each one of my characters is a picture. There's a little spider, there's a loving cup, there's an ambulance, blah, blah, blah. Wingdings is kind of the same thing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go inside of here. And I'm going to actually, let me just make a document real quick. I'm going to call this test.html. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some text. This is a test. Okay, and let's preview this. I'm just going to blow it up real big. Okay, so it's regular text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to set up a style section so I could write CSS. And I'm just going to say, let's turn this into, I'm going to use that Webdings font. So font family Wingdings. Okay. Now I'm going to save, and what's going to happen is it should turn each of these letters. Oops, is it one word? It might be one word. There you go. Into icons. Okay. So I got like a little, snowflake and whatever these are. And I could try to play around with different lettering. I don't know. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Z, W, Y, whatever. Hit save. So you can see I'm getting all these different icons, right? So this is a lot easier than having to go find a picture of every single icon and keep, using the IMG tag to bring them in. So there's this framework out there that's really helpful, and it's called Font Awesome. Okay, Font Awesome, there's a link to it in the module. You can literally just go to Google and type Font Awesome. Unfortunately, it used to be really simple, and they've kind of over the years made it more kind of a pain to deal with, but I still think it's a useful technique, so we're going to still use it. So in the new versions of Font Awesome, you're going to need an account. It's free to set up, but you're going to need one. Now, what you could do is you could literally download the framework. Okay, so if I went to downloads, which is on the front page there, I could come in here and say free for web, and it's going to download all of this code. Okay, I'm not going to go over all of the code, but if you wanted to, you could take this code and you could put it into your project. Okay, I've actually already done that here for you, but you could download it. Okay. Another way to do this is to use what is called a CDN, or a content delivery network. Basically, what a CDN is kind of what we just talked about, where I can connect my file to someone else's files that are, if those files are stored online. And that's basically what a CDN is. It's a virtual storage of that file. Okay. We're going to talk about how to get a CDN first. So you could download the file like I showed you, and you could put them into the project. Okay. So here I have Font Awesome 6.20, which is, I don't know if that's the latest, but it's one of the latest. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and install it. So if you notice here, this is exercise 7. I've connected to a style sheet that's inside of this Font Awesome 6.2.0. Okay. That essentially installs the icons into my project. Okay. There's the folder. I'm connecting this file to that folder. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, if you're on the Font Awesome website, you can click on icons, and then you can type in the name of any icon you want. So let's look for, I don't know, airplane. Okay. So just to let you guys know, not every icon is free. Some are part of the paid version of Font Awesome. But that's okay. So I'm going to click on plain. This one should be free. Now you could download this file as an SVG. I'm actually just going to copy this. Okay, you can also click here to just automatically copying it. And what I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to place it in my project. Okay. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to add some HTML, usually an I tag, that has a class being applied to it. Okay. Basically, without getting like super complicated, your CSS, the CSS here is going to replace this with the plain icon that we just copied. Okay. So I'm going to save and I'm going to just preview this so we can see it. Okay, so there's the little plain icon right there on the far left. Okay, so you might go, okay, great, we can do that. Why would we want to do this? Like, this seemed like a lot of work. Why would I want to do this as opposed to maybe using images, like we've been using before? That's a good question. So I want to show why icon fonts are beneficial. Okay, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. Now, I have two versions of the same icon. This is the Facebook icon, and this is the Facebook icon as an image. So I'm using the IMG tag here. And this is the Facebook icon using Font Awesome. Okay. So don't worry that they're different sizes. We'll eventually, play around with that. But what I'm going to do here, this is an image. Okay. I've applied a little link or an ID to it so I can affect that, just that one, image. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say image. Let's say I wanted to modify this image once it's in my web page. Now, what I could do is I could change the width. I could make my image bigger or smaller by changing the width property. Okay, so that worked. What if I wanted to change the color of this? Right now it's a black icon, right? What if I wanted the icon to be red? Well, maybe I'll try the background color. Well, that put a color behind it, but it didn't change the black, which is really what I wanted. So that didn't work. And maybe I want to, well, let's try the color for the text. That didn't work. So the thing with an image is if you want to modify the image by, like, say, changing the color or, whatever, unfortunately, you're going to have to take it back to a program like Photopea or Figma or Photoshop or whatever you use to create it to change the settings of it there. Okay. Keep in mind that this icon here, this is considered text. Okay. So when I was in, if I'm in TextEdit and I set my document to, Webdings or Wingdings or whatever it is that you want to use. Fortunately, I don't think I can use it here. Well, anyway, but what I could do is text, you can change the color of text. You can also change the size of text, right? Well, I can do that here since this is text technically. So this has a ID of awesome being applied to it. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, well, let's make the text bigger. How do we normally make text bigger? Well, font size. Let's make it 50 points. I come in here and you can see it grows. Okay. I make it 150, make it bigger. One nice thing about Font Awesome is all of the icons are actually defaultly vector-based. This is because it's a font. All fonts are defaultly vector-based because that lets us, if you think about it, you can scale text larger or smaller in a program like TextEdit or Microsoft Word, and it doesn't distort. It's the same thing. So I can make my, my icon whatever size I want using CSS, and it never distorts. Whereas this is an image, it's a raster-based image. So if I actually make this bigger, than its default size, which I forgot what the default size is. I think it's like 300 or something. So you can see it starts to distort. Whereas if I take this item and I blow it up, see how it never distorts because it's vector based. Okay. So I can, make something bigger. I'm just going to, I don't need it this big. Let's maybe make it like 100 pixels. Okay. Maybe I want to change the color of this. Well, I could come in here and I could say color, because this is just text. And if I wanted to change text color, use the color property. Right? Well, I'm going to set this to orange. It makes it orange. Or maybe I want to make it green. Okay. Well, when we have text, we always have hover states. Remember that? So, well, if I said awesome : hover, just like you might do a hyperlink, I'm going to set a different color. So here, not only can I change the color, I can also add a hover state to it. That's something I couldn't easily do to this image here. Not that it's impossible. There are ways of doing that, but requires JavaScript or using some sort of code. This is all based in CSS. Okay. So how I could use this is, let's say I want to create a social media bar really quickly. Okay. Well, I'm going to come in here. Now, let me show you guys. So the last time, exercise 7, this was attached to a downloaded file. Okay. Like I said, it might actually be easier to use a CDN or an online version of the file. So I'm going to show you how you can do that with Font Awesome. So in Font Awesome, this requires you have an account. Unfortunately, there's no other way to do the CDN, or at least not easily. So what I'm going to do is you go up to here to your account. If you're not logged in, you're going to have to create an account. It is free, so it's not going to charge you. And then what you're going to do is you have to create what's called a kit. So I'm going to click on Manage Kits, and then I already have one, but if you didn't have one, you'd have to go up here to where it says Add New Kit. Okay. Once you get a kit, you want to click on where it says Setup, and then you want to click over here to where it says CSS Embed Code. This is the code you would have to add to your HTML document to connect your HTML document to the Font Awesome copy of the CSS. Okay, this is the CDN essentially. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to exercise 8, and I'm just going to paste this in. Okay. What's going on here? Oh, because All right. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have anything in my document yet. I'm just going to build a little social media bar using Font Awesome really quickly. So I'm going to just create a little nav tag. And the first thing I need to do is get icons. So I want to get the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok logos. So I'm going to go back. Now that this is installed, I can once again just use icons, and I'm just going to look for icons. Let's type in Facebook. And I'm going to use the circle version. So I'm going to go here. This is the HTML. Let's copy that. I'm going to paste that inside. Let's do Twitter. And I'm going to use this version. Copy. Paste. Let's do Instagram. And I'm going to use this one. Copy. Let's do TikTok. Copy. What was the other one? Oh, Twitter. Let's do Twitter. All right, I'm going to use this one, copy it. All right, so I have all, oh, I already have it. Which one? I forgot. Oh, Pinterest. That was the one I was, I forgot. All right, so I copied and pasted all of the HTML that I need. This is connecting to my account. Okay, so I'm gonna right click. All right, everyone, I learned a small fact there. It didn't work the first time because I did this. I was using the CSS embed version. Apparently, you have to have a pro account to do this. So the way I saw this was I could use the JavaScript version of it. It's basically the same thing. You can copy it and then you can just paste it into your head section and it should do the same thing. Okay. So just instead of using the CSS tab, use the JavaScript tab. I don't want to get too deep into JavaScript. I normally would use the CSS, but that seems to be, they've just changed it where you have to have the pro account to do that. Unfortunately, and I don't want you guys to have to do that. So we're just going to use the JavaScript for now. Anyway, that leads to this where I get a bunch of icons. Okay. I want to make the icons bigger. Now, if you notice, each of these icons has multiple classes being applied to it. One is a class that they all share, which is this FA brands, and then each one has kind of their own little individual, brand there. So what I could do is, well, if they all share this one class, I could use this one class to affect all of them. So I'm going to set by making them larger. Font size, I don't know, 50 points. All right, there you go. The bigger. Maybe I want to give them a color. So color orange. Okay, that sets a color to all of them. I'm going to push them. They're a little too tight from each other, so I'm going to put a little margin on them. Margin right 18 pixels. Maybe a little more. 35. Yeah, that's a little too much. Got to play around with the spacing there. All right. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument, I wanted the Facebook one to look different. Okay, I want to style it a different color. Well, because Facebook has its own class, I could use that to pinpoint that one icon. So FA is font awesome, by the way. Facebook. And then let's make that red. And, oh, I don't know. I'm going to put a border around it. That looks horrible, but, I'm just doing something here. I'm playing around with it. You know what I mean? So this is a way we can easily make icons and style them. So I can style them, if I wanted to create a quick hover effect. Something like that. So, you're going to see this in a lot of websites. Let's go to Diablo Valley's website here. Let's find some icons. Not all icons are necessarily colored, but, I bet we could find some icons, like especially here. See these? If I right click and do it inspect. You can see see how it says, see how it says A. This is a font awesome. You can tell because it says FA Facebook. That means it's a font awesome. See font awesome brand 6. Okay. So anywhere anytime I see a bunch of icons, I usually will check to see whether they are font awesome icons. And you'll find these a lot. Okay. All right. So why don't you guys try that out?